Welcome back, geometry thinkers. Today's TEK is G2C. Determine an equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a given line that passes through a given point. Now, this specific video covers the equation of a line in standard form, which is ax plus by equals c, and in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Our learning objective is to write the equation of a line in standard form and slope-intercept form. And you will know you have mastered this objective when you can actually write the equation of a line in standard form and also in slope-intercept form. Now, every step you take and every skill that you learn makes you stronger. I know you can do this. So let's turn your practice into power. The standard form of a line goes by this equation that's right here. It is ax plus by equals c. Now, the a and the b are what we call coefficients. Those are numbers that are next to these variables. And c is just a number. There is no variable attached to it. An example problem would look like this. The instructions read, write y plus 4 equals 2/3 x minus 2 in standard form. Now notice, they want you to put this equation right here into this format where you have something times x plus something times y equals c. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to algebraically transform it to get our x's, then our y's equaling to the numbers. ax plus by equals c. So as I look at this, what I see is we have a denominator of 3. And it's so much easier if we get rid of the denominator. So in order to get rid of this denominator, I need to multiply this by 3. But if I multiply the right side by 3, in order to keep the equality of this equation, I'm going to have to multiply the left side by 3. And so that's exactly what the next step is. I take 3, I multiply it times y plus 4 is equal to 3 times 2/3 the quantity x minus 2. And so looking at this, I see a factor of 3 here, a factor of 2/3 here, and a factor of x minus 2. I can take these two factors, and since I have a 3 in the numerator and a 3 in the denominator, I can cross those 3's out. And they just basically disappear, which is what we see in the next step. We end up getting 3 times y plus 3 times 4 is going to be equal to 2 times x minus 2 times 2. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 4 is your plus 12. Since the 3's have canceled out, it's like they're not there anymore, you have a distributive property. You're going to go 2 times x minus 2 times 2. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times a negative 2 is that negative 4. So what we did in that one step was we just knocked out that denominator. Things in our lives became so much easier by getting rid of that denominator. So now what we want to do is we want to move these x's over to this side. And the way we get rid of these two x's is we're going to subtract 2 x's from the right. But if we subtract 2 x's from the right, we have to subtract it from the left. Whatever you do to the right, you have to do to the left. Whatever you do to the left, you have to do to the right. So my next step right here is I'm going to subtract 2 x's from both sides. I subtract it from the left, I subtract it from the right. Now what happens is, on the right, if I have 2x here and I'm subtracting 2 x's, all that's going to be left is your -4 because these two x's cross out. But over here, I have 3y plus 12 minus 2x. There is nothing I can do on that left side to simplify that. So what I'm going to begin doing is I'm going to readjust things. I'm going to move my 2x's over here. Then I'm going to add the 3y's, and I can't forget the 12. So what I end up with by moving those 2x's is I get a -2x plus 3y plus 12 equaling my -4. What I want to do now is I want to move the numbers, the 12, over to this side. How do I get rid of the 12? If I'm adding 12, I'm going to subtract 12. If I subtract 12 from the left, I have to subtract 12 from the right. So that's basically my next step, subtracting 12 from both sides. So subtracting 12, these 12s cross out on the left. It's as if they don't exist anymore on the left. And what I get is my -2x plus 3y. But up here, I have a -4 minus 12. So a -4 subtracting 12 brings me to a -16. So my next step is -2x plus 3y equals a -16. So notice, I have my x's, y's, and my numbers. We are almost in standard form. The one thing that we have to do is we want to make that x a positive number. So do you see that this is a -2x? How do we change a -2 into a +2? We have to multiply by a -1. So I'm going to take and multiply the left side by a -1 and the right side by a -1. Because whatever you do to the left side, you have to do to the right. So my next step is multiplying both sides by a -1. I'm going to distribute that -1 to the -2x and the -1 to the +3y. And what that does is that converts my -2x into a +2x, and it converts my +3y into a -3y. And then if you look over here, we have a -1 times a -16. A negative times a negative is a positive. So this becomes a +16. The final answer for putting this into standard form would be 2x minus 3y is equal to 16. This right here is your standard form answer. And once again, I'm going to zoom in here just to give you a heads up that you always want your x's to be positive. Since they were negative here, look what I wrote up here. Multiply each side by -1 to obtain a positive coefficient for x. Remember, the coefficient is the number term that's outside the variable. Here's the problem in its totality, going from where we started to putting it in standard form. Let's look at another example problem. The instructions read, write this equation in standard form. Now, this equation has some fractions in it. Notice it's a -2/3 times the quantity x plus 7 equals y minus 3/4 or 3/4. They want us to take this equation and put it into standard form, which is ax plus by is equal to c. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to look at all my denominators. I have a 3 on this side, and I have a 4 on this side. So when we're trying to figure out what do we multiply by to get rid of those denominators, we have to multiply by what we're going to call the LCD, the least common denominator. That means the smallest common denominator. So what that means is what is the smallest number that both 3 and 4 can go into evenly. So what I did was I put the multiples of 3 and the multiples of 4 together. So notice, you go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, and 33. So this is basically 3 all the way up, 3 times 1 going to 3 times 11. I did the same for the 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, and 44. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see what's the smallest number that these two share in common. Well, it's the 12 right here. So this would be my LCD. Now you could have chosen 24, but you would have ended up having to reduce it. So always go with the LCD, the smallest common denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides of my fraction by that LCD, by the 12. This is what we start with. And what I did was I found the least common denominator for 3 and 4, which is 12. So I'm going to multiply the left side by 12 and the right side by 12. And that's what this step is. Notice the 12s are in different colors so that you can actually visually see what's happening on the left and the same thing happening on the right. So on the left, again, I have 12, I have negative 2/3 as a factor, and I have x plus 7 as a factor. On the right, I have two factors, 12, and then I have y minus 3/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply through by the 12. So I can multiply the 12 times a negative 2/3. So when you're looking at this, you're going to say, I can say 3 can go into 3 once. So I'm going to cross out the 3 and put a 1. 3 can go into 12 4 times. I'm now going to take that 4 and I'm going to multiply it by the negative 2. Again, 3 can go into 12 4 times. Cross these out. This is now a 4. I multiply it times a negative 2, which gives me my negative 8. So notice what happens in the next step. I have my negative 8, which is the 4 that's right here, times the negative 2, which is right here. And then I just bring down that factor of x plus 7. Over on the right-hand side, this right here, I need to multiply that 12 through the parentheses using the distributive property. So I need to go 12 times y minus 12 times 3/4. I'm going to say it again. You use the distributive property to move through the parentheses. This 12 is going to be distributed to the y. The 12 is also going to be distributed to this negative 3/4. So that's exactly what I did in this step. I multiplied 12 times y minus 12 times 3/4. Now we're going to focus on this part right here. You have a 4 in the denominator and you also have the 12 in the numerator. 4 can go into 12 3 times. So I can cross out the 4, cross out the 12, and replace it with a 3. So what I'm doing is basically I am reducing the fraction. I am taking 4, dividing 4 by 4 is 1, 12 by 4 is 3, and then I'm going to multiply that 3 times the 3 that's in the numerator. So look at the next step. We have our negative 8 times the quantity x plus 7 is equal to 12y minus 3 times 3, which is 9. So my next step is right here. Negative 8 times x plus 7 is equal to 12y minus 9. So what we're going to need to do next is we're going to take this negative 8 and we're going to multiply it through the parentheses. We're going to say negative 8 times x, negative 8 times a positive 7. Again, this is called the distributive property. You're going to see that a lot when we're solving equations. So multiplying through the parentheses, I get a negative 8 times x is negative 8x. I get a negative 8 times a positive 7, which is my negative 56. Notice, I'm just bringing the 12y minus 9 down. So this is my new equation that I'm working with. Negative 8x minus 56 equals 12y minus 9. What I want to do, I'm trying to put this in standard form, right? I need to move these 12y's over to this left side. How do I do it? Well, I subtract it. I'm going to subtract 12y's from the right. If I subtract these from the right, I have to subtract 12y's from the left. So the next step is exactly that. I take the pink stuff is the same. The pink stuff is the same. The only thing that's changed is minus 12y, minus 12y. Now look what happens on this side. If you have plus 12y, minus 12y, these things cancel out. It's as if they no longer exist. The only thing that matters now is this negative 9. So notice my next step. I have my x's, my numbers, and some y's. I'm going to readjust it to put my x's first, my y's second, and my numbers last. And that is going to be equal to this negative 9 that just comes down. I'm getting closer to putting this in standard form, which is ax plus by is equal to c. I just need to move this negative 56 over to this side. So how do I get rid of that 56? If I'm subtracting 56, I need to add 56 to the left and add 56 to the right. So notice that's exactly what this next step has. I'm going to add 56 here, add 56 here. The 56's cross out because I'm subtracting them and adding them. So I have my negative 8x minus 12y, and then I have a negative 9 plus 56. If I take and I subtract 9 from 56, it gives me 47, or a negative 9 plus 56 will push me over into the positive area of the number line, moving me to number 47. So look what we have here. We have negative 8x minus 12y equals 47. Remember in the last problem, we want our x's to be positive. So how do we get that number positive? Well, we need to multiply the left side by a negative 1. And if we multiply the left side, we have to multiply the right. Whatever you do to the left, you have to do to the right. Whatever you do to the right, you have to do to the left. So, taking that, we multiply both sides by our negative 1. And notice, that's the only thing multiplying by a negative 1 that's changed from the previous step. I ran out of room on the bottom, so I just drew this arrow so you would know where we're going next. So I'm going to distribute that negative 1 through the parentheses. Negative 1 times negative 8x is a positive 8x. Negative 1 times a negative 12y is a positive 12y. A negative 1 times a 47 is a negative 47. So the equation of this line in standard form is 8x plus 12y equals negative 47. That's your answer. Take a look at what we did and make sure you know how to get from step 1 to step 2, step 2 to step 3, 3 to 4, going the whole way down here. You should be able to say how we moved from step to step and why. There's always a reason as to why we do something in math, especially geometry. So make sure you know how to do it and why you did it. All right, geometry thinkers, now it's your turn to take the lead. Let's see how you can apply what we just covered, what you just learned. Now, the instructions read, write this equation that you see here, one that has two fractions with two different denominators. One is a 5, the other's an 8. And they want you to write this equation in standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. You are going to follow the exact same process that we used in the two previous examples. Remember to show all of your work in your notebook and be sure to box in your final answer. Your written work should clearly show me your thinking so that I can follow your logic step by step. If you have any issues or if you have any questions, please ask for help. You may check your answers on the next slide. Now, please pause the video and complete your work. When you are finished, please press play to continue. Now here's the answer to the problem. So we started out with this equation right here, and we were asked to put this equation into standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. We go through our algebra, moving things around from left to right in order to get our x's and our y's on one side and our numbers on the other. Notice too that I have my LCD chart over here on the left, and that LCD chart tells me what my smallest number that 8 and 5 can go into. And that helps me get rid of those fractions in the denominator so that I don't have to worry about them. So look, we cut out our fractions right here in that second step. And moving down here, we're not worried about fractions. We're just using whole numbers. So again, this problem, given an equation, placing it in standard form, please pause the video and check your answers. When you're finished, press play to continue. Let's look at what we call the slope-intercept form of a line. This equation right here that you see, the y equals mx plus b, is called the slope-intercept form of a line. Now, this m right here stands for your slope, which is rise over the run. Rise is how far you go up or down. Run is how far you move to the left or to the right. So m is going to be your slope, and that's the coefficient that's attached to x. Now, the number all by its lonesome is going to be your y-intercept. Now, the y-intercept is where the graph will cross the y-axis. So y equals mx plus b is called the slope-intercept form because just by looking at it, you know what the slope is and you know what the y-intercept is. Okay? Let's look at some examples. This equation right here, y equals 2x plus 6. This is in slope-intercept form. So this is my y equals mx plus b. My slope is 2. My y-intercept is b. Now remember, slope, we want to think of slope as a fraction. So it's going to be 2 over 1, which 2 is my rise, 1 would be my run. Looking at the next example, y equals a negative 3x minus 2. This is in slope-intercept form already. So what we have is we have our slope right here, and we have our y-intercept right here. Then notice, what makes this different from the prior example is that my y-intercept is negative. You have to bring that negative over. So the y-intercept becomes a -2, and the slope is a -3, or the slope is a -3/1, which is also equal to 3 over a -1. Let's take a look at this. Y equals 2/5 x. 2/5 x. So what we're going to do is we're going to write y equals mx plus b. So even though there is no numbers after the 2/5 x, we could actually write in plus 0. So the equation is y equals 2/5 x plus 0. Now that you see that, you can easily say my slope is 2/5, my y-intercept has to be 0. Let's look at this one. Y equals a -x plus 1. The slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So if I'm looking at this, the coefficient attached to that x would actually be a -1. So my slope is a -1, or the slope would be a -1 over 1, or 1 over a -1. And the y-intercept would be a +1. Our last example. So looking at this, my slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. Looking at the equation, I can immediately see that my slope has to be 1/3, and my y-intercept is a -5/2. If we changed 5/2 into a decimal number, you would get 2.5, or 2.5. Take a look at the examples and see how we came up with the slope, which is m, and the y-intercept, which is b. In each one of these examples, you should be able to look at the equation and immediately tell what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. Slope and y-intercept. If it's just a number, you can place that number over 1. So this is a -1, you can just put that over 1. Let's look at another example. The instructions read, express y plus 5 equals 3 times the quantity x minus 1/3 in slope-intercept form. That would be y equals mx plus b. So they want you to take this equation that's right here and not write it in standard form, but write it in y equals mx plus b. Notice that when you have y equals mx plus b, the coefficient for this y always needs to be 1. So my first step is to get rid of that fraction. Do you see that we have that 3 in the denominator? How do I get rid of a denominator? If I have more than 1, I will multiply by the LCD, or the least common denominator. But if I just have 1, I multiply by that number. And so this is 3, so I'm going to multiply the left side by 3 and the right side by 3. So notice my next step. I took exactly what is above it, and I multiplied both sides by 3. I'm going to distribute, simplify as I move to my next step. This is my next step. So I'm going to take 3 times y plus 3 times 5. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 5 is 15. Now look what happens. This 3, I'm going to multiply it times that negative 3. So a 3 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 9. So I'm moving through these steps little by little, step by step, just almost baby steps, trying to make sure that I check my multiplication, check my signs, make sure everything is correct. So as I look at this, I think what I want to do next is multiply the negative 9 through the parentheses. So I'm going to have to distribute the negative 9 through the parentheses. So a negative 9 times x is a negative 9x. And then I have a negative 9 times a negative 1/3. A negative times a negative is a positive. And I have a 9 times 1/3, which is right here. Notice that I have a 3 in the denominator and a 9 in the numerator. I know that 3 can go into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 3 once. So this thing right here simplifies to be 3. So now I rewrite that step in a simplified form. I have 3y plus 15 equals negative 9x plus 3. I'm trying to put this into the form of y equals mx plus b. So what I need to do, I need to get my y's all by themselves on the left-hand side. In order to do that, I need to move my 15s over here. What's the opposite of adding 15? Subtracting 15. So if I subtract 15 from the left, I have to subtract 15 from the right. Now notice what happens on the left-hand side. These 15s go bye-bye, and so they're gone, and all that remains is my 3y. Over here, I have my negative 9x, and I'm going to combine like terms, which is a positive 3 and a negative 15. A positive 3 and a negative 15 is a negative 12. Now look what's happened. I have simplified this to be almost where we need it. Y equals mx plus b. In order to get it into that format, I have to get rid of this 3. And notice that y is being multiplied by 3. What's the opposite of multiplying by 3? Dividing by 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get rid of that 3 in the numerator. So notice in my next step, it's exactly what I did. I divide the left side by 3 and the right side by 3. The 3's cross out on the left, and I am so close. I get y is going to be equal to, now, when you're subtracting or adding something in the numerator, and you have a solid denominator like this 3 that's right here, you need to take this 3 and put it under the negative 9x, and you're going to take that 3 and put it under the 12 as well. So I'm going to take this, simplify it into a negative 9x divided by 3 minus 12 divided by 3. I know that 3 can go into negative 9 negative 3 times, and I know that 3 can go into 12 4, and we have to subtract that 4. So it's negative 3x minus 4. This is the equation in slope-intercept form. We took this and we converted it into this. Man, this looks a lot simpler, doesn't it? And just looking at this, you can automatically tell 2 pieces from the get-go. One is the slope is going to be a negative 3, or a negative 3 over 1, and the y-intercept is going to be a negative 4. Now you may ask, why a negative 4? because the formula says this. We are going to multiply the slope by x, and then we're going to add the y-intercept. So if I was writing this in true slope-intercept form, what it would look like would be y equals a negative 3x plus a negative 4, because we want to keep this plus part in the formula. Slope then becomes a negative 3 over 1, but you can also say it's 3 over a negative 1, and then we have our slope, or excuse me, our y-intercept being equal to negative 4. All right, here we go again. It's your turn to take the lead. Now let's see if you can apply what we just learned to this specific example. The instructions read, express this equation, y minus 3 equals 2 times the quantity x plus 3/4 in slope-intercept form. So they want you to take this equation and write it into y equals mx plus b. Remember to show all of your work and be sure to box in your final answers. Please, if you have any questions or issues, ask. Your written work should clearly show me your thinking, what you are doing to solve the problem in a logical step-by-step format. You may check your answers on the next slide. Now please pause this video and complete your work, and when you're finished, press play to continue. Here is the answer to the problem. We took this equation and we converted it into y equals mx plus b. My m is the slope of 2 over 1, but you could also write this as a negative 2 over a negative 1. And the y-intercept is 9/2, which simplifies to be 4.5, or 4.5. This is it for today's video. If something doesn't make sense, that is your cue to ask questions. You can come to me, you can talk with your classmates, or even try AI for a step-by-step explanation. We are all here to help you succeed. You learn best by breaking concepts down, step by step, skill by skill. You are turning your practice into your power. I believe in you, and I know you can do this. You're on your way to success. Let me know if I can help. Have a great day.